Hello.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Welcome to Service Design Drinks.
Where are you joining us from? You can please type on the chat.
So good to have everyone here.
Hello, hello. Some known names and faces.
Someone called Mark is here from the Netherlands. Berlin, Amsterdam, Washington.
Washington, what time is it there?
Yeah, tell us what time as well when you write the city. Tell us the time it is for you. It's 6:30 p.m. in the evening for us in Berlin.
And for those of you new to Zoom, maybe not many, you can always change on the top right of your screen the view so you can see more faces or less faces.
And also I don't know if it's happening now for people, but in this view button in the top right, maybe it maximized and it's filling up your whole full screen mode. So you can't see your other things, but you can change that in the view button as well. Oh, it's lunchtime in Washington, DC. Cool. 34 people in now.
Cool.
2:30 p.m. in Brazil. I don't know, I always have to say Brazil like that.
Brazil.
And Chicago, lots of US
Wow.
and Holland, of course, Netherlands.
Yes.
Sorry, Netherlands.
Cool. We're going to be a few minutes more as people join before we kick off.
I think this is one of the biggest crowds that we've ever had. Well, we'll see how many people actually join. We're up to 42. But I think our maximum was something close to 100 actually joining on the day, something like that, 95 or something. So you never know.
Let's give it some time.
San Francisco. Yeah.
You're definitely the best grouping look we've had, I would say. That's fantastic. Great to have you here. Good morning to the San Francisco Bay Area.
Yeah.
And Stefan just asked, oh wait, it was a direct message or reply, but actually he just, I'll just say to everyone now, just asked if we're recording and if the video will be available later, which it will.
Yes.
Yeah, I can point you, I'll find the link already for our YouTube channel, but it's really just where we post the videos from the events. So I'll put that in the chat soon, Stefan.
All of our past events are available on sddberlin.com.
Yeah.
Yes.
Jens is here.
Yeah, I just thought to. Hi, Jens.
Hello.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good. We're gonna give it one more minute and then
I think it might be good. We already have 55 people.
Yeah.
More now. We're close to 60, 70. So yeah.
Okay. So let's start and people can still join in. I mean, I see that people are still coming in. Welcome everybody again to today's, this morning's, depending on where you are, Service Design Drinks, Berlin edition. Today we have a really interesting topic, which is the real value of service design. And for that we have a very interesting guest. But first, let's talk about logistics. Do you all have your drinks with you? It doesn't need to be a cocktail.
Yeah.
I'm having here my transparent drink.
These double fisting.
Yeah, so one thing that we always want to start with is why are we here, and what do we mean in Berlin with the service design drinks? We are doing an event for including people, for meeting people when we could in person. Now, for a while now, we've been doing this remotely, which allows us to get people from San Francisco, from Washington, from Brazil. It's all about leveling up, sharing and learning, also speaking and coaching. And we've had in the past people that were guests that used to be attendees. So if you're interested in speaking, get in touch with us and let's talk. And overall, it's an opportunity to have a drink and just have a conversation in a relaxed atmosphere. And there's a team behind this. It's not just me. You can see on screen as well here, there's Dee and Adam and Mela, who is not today in this event, but is also in the background helping a lot. And of course, there is a guest. And tonight's guest is Marc from the Netherlands, who is the founder of the Service Design Show and is the head of, well, everything at Service Design Jobs. So what are we going to be doing today? We're going to have a conversation with Marc. You'll be able to also ask some questions. And at the end, we'll have on a separate place, we will have a network event or session. We expect to have around 20 minutes. So the last 20 minutes from this event, we will be on this other link. We will be sharing the link on the chat later, so you don't need to now copy paste a shortened URL. Yeah, it's now we're going to be focusing on Zoom, and then we're going to be moving to WonderMe, as you probably saw on our social media. And with that, I think let's get to it. Who is Marc Fonteijn? You might know him from social media, from videos, from pictures, but now we have him here and he can tell us a little bit about himself. So Marc, who are you? What's your role?
Hello, everybody. Good to see everyone. You're starting with the big question, who is Marc Fonteijn? That's a big question. Yeah, first and foremost, I'm a dad of two, living in the Netherlands in a city called Utrecht. And I can tell a lot more about myself, but maybe the thing that people might know me from is a thing called the Service Design Show, which has almost been running for 5 years. April will be the 5-year anniversary. I think episode 123 on 124 will be out. An interview with somebody who's related to the service design field every 2 weeks for the last 5 years.
Wow, cool. And what would be your favorite meal when you're sad?
When I'm sad, I wasn't sad, but I had that meal last week. It's nacho chips with a lot of cheese, hot peppers, and a beer.
Good. Who would you invite for dinner to share the nacho?
I don't know. I know he doesn't drink beer, but I don't know if he likes nachos. I would love to have dinner with Chris Doe, a guy who runs The Future. Awesome educator, super smart guy. So yeah.
Cool. And the last of these really quick questions, what would you consider to be your most prized possession?
That was a tough question. The best thing I could come up with was my MacBook, probably. If my MacBook dies, then a big part of me dies as well. So next to my kids, of course, I need to have this on video.
So you started by describing a little bit about yourself, but I think for a lot of people, they know who you are today. how did you get there? So can you tell us a little bit about your professional journey?
Yeah, sure. It was a long and painful journey. For the people, by the way, who are on LinkedIn, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if you have any questions after this, or just want to say hi. I'm open to connect with everybody. So maybe somebody can share the link there. Yeah. The first icon is my study. I actually didn't study design, far from it, at least so I thought. I studied software engineering. I'm by trade or by study a software engineer. And to my surprise, I discovered that a lot of principles from software engineering are applicable in that design space as well. We can go into that later. My first jobs, I think my first pay job was as a shoe salesman, and or it could have been at a call center helping people fix their internet. Literally, this was in, I don't know, around the year 2000 or something like that. The ADSL internet connections were coming up, so there were a lot of phone calls back then.
Very insightful job, I guess, to begin with.
So it was super easy for me. It was easy money. Yeah.
And you have, I would like to understand, what are these emojis for the random job?
Yeah. So I've been a barman for, I think, less than a week. I started working at a bar, went on vacation, and when I came back, the bar was bankrupt. So I never returned to that profession again. And the fish icon is that I had a project called Ask a Fish. And there was around the time where you had the octopus that was doing the soccer predictions. Right. And we had a fish swimming in a fishbowl. And there was a webcam pointed at the fish, and people could ask questions. And at that moment, a snapshot would be made of the ball. And then if the fish would be in the upper half of the ball, it would be a yes. And the down half be a no. And now you're thinking, how was that a job? We actually implemented Google Ads around those questions and made some money around the fish. We were able to pay for the fish food.
Wow. I see that you have a mustache today. So what are
it's Corona. It's the COVID thing. I think the barbers opened up in the Netherlands today again. So today, I spend a lot of time educating. I love education. I never would have thought that I would describe myself as an educator, but everything I do on the YouTube channel, on the podcast, and the courses and the programs that I run has to do with education. So I think that's where I spend most of my time. And for that, I realized that I write a lot. I spend a lot of my day writing stuff, whether it's emails, whether it's outlines for videos, whether it's social media posts. I really spend a lot of time writing.
Right, which takes us to the service design show, part of your today.
Yes.
And why do you do it? You quickly touched upon the service design show, but what made you start with the service design show, and why do you do it?
Yeah, I think these images tell it all, right? Do I need to further comment on this? No, it's so sort of the first GIF where the boy is starstruck. The service design show was an excuse for me to have conversations with people who are much smarter than myself and be able to sort of book my time on their calendar and pick their brain. That was 5 years ago, and that's still happening to the day today. And I think it's the Power Rangers.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really about the thing that I find interesting about having the conversations with people in the service design field is trying to understand what are the things that are beneath the surface of service design and trying to expose those, level up the entire industry, like find the superpowers that make service design work. So sort of like that. And maybe I can come up with even better stories now I'm looking at that GIF. But yeah.
And you were saying that you met a lot of very smart people at the service design show. Anybody that surprised you? Anybody that was unexpected?
Yeah, a lot of people. What I try to do is to find people who are on the fringes of service design, so not per se in the service design space. So yesterday I had a conversation with a lady who's a game designer. I've spoken to people who are copywriters, people who are really good researchers, people who know everything about storytelling. So service design is that, like, it's a mix. We steal a lot from other disciplines in service design, and then it's interesting to actually listen to experts from those other disciplines.
Yeah, which I see there's a hand up.
Yeah, I actually really just wanted to jump in at this point with this on the screen and say to Mark that the chat, I don't know if you're watching it, probably not because you're having a conversation.
We're half yeah, it's open here.
So many people saying how much they love the service design show and the podcast and all of the effort you've put into things like the salary report. And it's the chat is flooded with people who are finding what you spend your time on really useful for them. So I just
awesome. Yeah. So I'm going to let the chat explode, hopefully. If you have seen any of the episodes of the show or heard any of them, type a yes. And let's see how many people actually, or a no if you haven't. Maybe then the chat will really explode.
I'm virtually typing yes as well.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, and I think you are talking a little bit about the service design show, and when we asked people to register for this event, we asked them to ask us questions about the value of service design, or communicating the value of service design, selling it. What is the most difficult thing, or what do you find difficult to do when doing so? And we found 4 clusters, 4 groups, 4 themes, and for the people here, we did not necessarily put all the content here, but there were 4 important things to consider, and in the conversation we will be having with Mark. One thing was, how do we measure the impact, or how are we able to communicate the impact of service design in a tangible way? There was talk about transactional versus holistic impact, actual metrics, KPIs. There were some questions around, how do you estimate the time for implementation, or the time that service design takes? And this was in the context of different types of organizations. So different maturities, different sizes. There was also a group of questions around how do we make service design understandable for people that are not service designers. Should we call it innovation, strategic design, business strategy, continuous improvement, change management, and so on and so forth? I think Mark just mentioned we steal a lot from different disciplines. That's one way to look at it. And finding the right way to build. There were a couple of questions that were really interesting about this, like, how do you price service design? So maybe that's a nice framing to go on to the topic of tonight, which is, what is the real value of service design, and how do you sell it? How do you communicate it? And I know that Mark is pretty happy with this question. This is a topic that is very dear to him. So what is the real value of service design, Mark?
The honest answer is that service design has no value.
Oh my God. Okay, so why are we here?
Why are we here? I think we'll go into that later. And I think the next slide, yeah, if you can open this one. So many people have have heard the story probably about the pen. Matti, what's the value of this pen?
I don't know. I don't know.
Take a guess.
20 cents.
Tension reliever.
Somebody mentioned the price. You mentioned tension reliever. So in day to day, like this pen is a normal pen and you have hundreds lying around, then the value of this pen might not be that high. But if you're sitting at the bank and it's almost closing time, you have 5 minutes to sign your mortgage, and you know that if you don't sign within the next 5 minutes, the interest rate will go up on the next day, costing you 20,000 euros. And this pen is the only thing in the room. What's the value of that pen at that moment? It's a lot more than in all the other situations. So I haven't come up with this story, and probably there are people who can tell this story much better. Like, by the way, 20 cents there's a big difference between price and cost and value. Yeah. I think that's one of the concepts that people tend to get mixed up, and to make the translation into service design. The reason why I said that service design has no value, the value only comes when you apply it to a challenge. Yeah. So when this pen is lying around, it still costs 20 cents, right? But it has no value as long as you don't put it to use. With service design, you could even say that service design has no cost until the moment that you start applying it, but it depends on the type of challenge you engage in, how important it is, what the potential is, before you can start talking about the value of it. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned a couple of interesting things there, and you're talking about how it's perceived, or whom is perceiving it. And I was wondering, is the value of service design also affected by who is applying or trying to get to how valuable is it? Because you're talking about the situation, right? And the people.
Yeah, absolutely. There are a lot of factors at play. And yes, I see a hand coming up, but definitely it's also influenced by who.
Yes, yeah. D?
I think I remember, Marty, when we were going through when people signed up on Eventbrite, we just asked this question, what questions do people want to ask? And there were a few that really came up in the same topic of almost more like, do you remember, Marty? There was the questions about like, okay, so because people don't understand the value, or it's hard to convince maybe clients or your managers to do some service design in a project. Literally, can you talk about this charging really by the day, or by we do a service design 3-week service design sprint at the beginning of something, and that costs this much, and like this difference of charging someone a package, or with service design, sometimes things come out like you don't know what's going to happen, so charging for a package, or do you just not want to talk? What can you say about this, Mark, and your experience and your opinion?
So if you can summarize the question, and maybe you can go back to the slide with the 4 topics, otherwise people will get freaked out by the pen, which is turning all the time.
So I think let me try to summarize the question from D. I think it's around finding the right way to bill, as in you were saying there's a big difference between what value is and what price or cost is.
Absolutely.
But when you're talking about something whose value, or where the value is depending on the context or depending on the situation, price and cost, how do you manage that to apply it? How would you do it?
Yeah. So again, there are people who are in a much better position than myself to answer that. One of the people who comes to mind is Dan Moll. who I've had on the show talking about pricing design. But I'm going to tap into my experience. I ran a service design studio for 12 years. So we had to bill and price service design for sure. Before I do that, I would be curious to hear your ideas about how would you bill for management?
Right. Yeah. There's a I think there is a conception that management, or at least I read about management being priced based on outcome, which doesn't necessarily put time in the bill, but only the result. I guess you could consider that a way to talk about service design as a billable item. However, we come into the second group of questions here, which is how do you estimate time? Because you still need to make a living out of it, right?
Yeah. So I don't want to dodge that question about billing and give people some practical advice. I found that it really depends on the maturity of your client. Most clients, who are new to service design, just want you to bill by the hour or by the project. The more mature your client becomes, the less they care about how you actually do it, and the more they are interested in the result that you're going to deliver. So finding the right is what's right for your client, and do whatever you want. How do you want to price? If you're okay with pricing by the hour on project, do that. And if your client is okay with that, but I found that it's really difficult in this stage, to get clients engaged to, sort of pay by outcomes for service design. That's challenging.
Yeah, I think it also comes to the third bucket here, it's about making service design understandable. How you communicate. I think you touched upon this in some things that you just mentioned. Communicating, talking, being able to have those conversations, and then what you just mentioned about finding the thing that works for you. You also need to find the things that work for your client, and together you will find hopefully the right middle ground. Yeah, but I wanted to touch upon this part, the making service design understandable. A lot of the work you do is in this direction, or at least I would put it in that direction. So should we call it innovation and stop fiddling with the service design term, or what's the right way? What should we do?
Again, I'm going to answer your question by asking a question. What is it that you think that people don't understand about service design?
I would be interested to know what the crowd thinks here as well. If you could,
yeah, of course,
that would be fantastic.
Yeah,
I think maybe I can add something.
Sure.
Great, yes.
There's one basic thing I found when you do research on the term, that is an understanding of service design in IT, which is quite different, and an understanding in design. And yeah, I mean, I don't know how people perceive it. I think the perception I would like them to have is that it's about design. And it's very broad now, but service design is very specific. It's a domain matter expert term. And because when you say service design, you come already into this, is it for IT purpose or is it for design business purpose? So I tend to make it simple.
Anyone else? Or shall I give my 2 cents?
Can you maybe repeat the question again?
Well, the question is, what makes it difficult? Why do you think people don't understand what service design is? If we need to make it more understandable. Okay. I see a hand by D.
Yeah, well, I think Maybe speaking for the audience, possibly, that there's also these two things. There's people who work for themselves and they literally bill and charge clients and convince clients to pay them to do service design. And then there's people who work in organizations, especially bigger ones. And there's this really different thing of like, that if you work, I think especially with lots of people who probably work in large organizations, that they really desperately want to do service design and they want to build better services. And it's the people that they're convincing, which is maybe managers or other teams that are not used to doing this, and the teams are used to getting a task to do, building the thing, like making the stuff, and then it gets shipped and done, and then they work on the next project and they don't feeling the pain of, is this working or not? Like they don't say, hey, yeah, we need service design. They're like, I'm doing my job, it's getting done. What do you mean service design? Why do you want to do this? So it's convincing the people who actually don't say, oh my God, please help me, come here and solve my problem. That can be super frustrating, especially when you're working in a big company. Anyone else in the audience have anything to add on that? Oh, here, we've got a few actually. Should I read them out? Well, Carolina says, because we alienate people through all the terminology. And so people feel they're not designers a lot of the time, so they don't consider themselves as service designers. Juan says, there are some other replacement definitions. Strategic design, user centricity, service design sounds also abstract and people can't create an idea of what it is exactly. The term doesn't sound inclusive enough. And I would also add to that, strategic design and user centricity also can be hard things to convince people of as well. Should I read the two more? There's two more come in.
Sure. Yeah.
Zhang Shenfan says, I don't think if we really need to divide clearly this concept when we use this in practice. Okay. Then Courtney wrote above and it got lost. They hardly see the difference between service and product. Yeah, so this is maybe a big one. And there are lots of similar terms. Okay, so there's a couple more coming in, but I think it's a lot about terminology.
So let me give my my perspective on this one. There was a guest on the show, I think it was Søren Bergman, who said, to understand service design, you sort of need to double click on service and you need to double click on design. The problem is that most people don't understand what a service is, and most people don't understand what design is, let alone they understand what the combination of those two things mean. But the solution is really simple. And I think this is a classic mistake that we tend to make. And that is that we think that people care about what service design is and that we should explain that to them. They don't. The only people who care about service design are the people who are in here today. The people we're working for are interested in results, outcomes. They're interested in having their problems solved. They don't care how you call it. Call it whatever you need to call it to get the job done. Do it. And then afterwards, maybe you can say that the way we did it is through service design. Stop worrying about the definition. Stop worrying about finding a one-liner. You will never succeed. Focus on the problem of your client, fix that, and then afterwards, maybe you can have a reflection and explain to them what you did.
Okay, that I think I can live with that. I see a lot of hearts. Yes. You were talking about the real value of service design. Is the real value of service design that it brings, that it solves problems? Is that where we need to focus on? Not defining it, but describing what it brings?
Yes.
You've heard it first here.
I think I had a post on LinkedIn, a one-liner this week where I said something like, the ultimate goal of service design is to help organizations be healthy and make sure that they stay relevant in our society. So that's the ultimate goal. And that's like that's where the value is. Of course, there are a lot of nuances, but yeah, if you want a one-liner, that would be my one-liner.
In that regard, if we look at the future, you just told us to stop trying to define it. What else should service designers stop doing?
What else should service designers stop doing? Stop reading books about service design. Read books about behavioral economics, read books about business, read books about strategy, read books about, well, storytelling. So yeah, don't stick in your service design bubble.
Okay.
Any top list of books?
Yeah.
Yes, I have a list of 30 books on the Service Design Show website.
Okay, we'll get that. We'll get that list. Yeah. What are we doing good? What should we keep doing?
Building bridges. That's, I think, what we're really good at, or we should be really good at. Connecting fields, connecting departments, connecting people, connecting customers, and having the holistic view. So zooming out of taking a helicopter view. I think that's the thing. That's one of the things we really bring to the table, next to the user-centeredness and a lot of other stuff. But yeah, connecting.
And you mentioned before that we're stealing from a lot of other disciplines, and now you're talking about building bridges. So where do you see service designers with other designers, fitting differences, similarities, building bridges, collaborating?
So there's, again, I'm going to refer to one of the conversations that I had. There's a episode on 7 metaphors to explain service design. And one of the examples there is, I think, the orchestra. The role of service design for me is really, if you look at the orchestra metaphor, to make sure that everyone is working in a harmony to provide a great experience for the listeners. You could say that you're a producer or a director, or who's the person standing in front of the orchestra?
Conductor.
The conductor. If you think about the soccer team, maybe you're the coach. That might imply that there is a hierarchy, but that's not at all what I'm saying. I think we're just part of the team, and we're just making sure that everybody together collaborates on creating something that's bigger and better than you could individually. So you have a lot of design disciplines that are focused on, let's say, the touch point level. So like making a really good USB connector and making sure that this is usable, that it's producible, that it's a good business case. But that's just one touch point in a journey. And I think we're, as service design community, are the ones who need to make sure that the entire story clicks and connects and works. So how do we relate? It's a long answer to a simple question, but how do we relate to other design disciplines? I think other design disciplines are more focused on the actual touch point level, and we're sort of trying to design the narrative for the story.
So in that regard, what should we service designers, or should the service designers start doing?
Yeah, well, I would say the first thing that comes to my mind, that's the topic of today. We should start learning about business. I'm biased. I think that's really one of the things that's holding us back from creating the impact that we potentially can, is that we don't understand business well enough.
How is it holding us back? What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So in order to do good, in order to put our craft into practice, we have to get the opportunity to do that. Somebody has to say yes, and somebody has to give you an assignment, a project, a budget. And usually those are people who have a business mindset, right? They are managers, CEOs, and I don't think we're well equipped and skilled enough at this moment in talking with them and giving them the confidence to engage in work with us. So what happens is that challenges are getting done by people who might be less qualified to do that actual work. So in that way, it's holding us back. We're losing out on opportunities to do good because we are not able to connect to people who are calling the shots.
So you're talking about learning to speak business, and this is a topic that comes sometimes in the conversations. I wonder, are we also, should we also start or focus on building other types of bridges as well? Do you see any other areas that we are neglecting as service designers somehow?
Well, yeah, probably. I don't know. I was talking to a game designer yesterday. I think there's so much we can learn from game design in services. I haven't heard a lot of conversation around that. And I think there are a lot of disciplines. Behavioral economics is another one. And I think that's the nature of service design. We have to find the things that are interesting and on the fringes, and steal from them, borrow from them, remix their good things, and bring it into service design.
Cool. I don't have access to the chat, so I don't know if there's any questions around this before we move on.
I think there's a lot of comments around this, and there's for sure like some controversy when it comes to what is service design and the value and return on investment of service designers. I think there isn't so many questions though, but I would encourage people to write down their questions if they have them. Lots of controversy and discussion around your points, Mark. Very good points thus far.
I think then we can go to something that for us also as a team is interesting, as the Service Design Drinks Berlin team is interesting. Who or what inspires you to keep building service design? You are so active and we see you everywhere. So I know you put an image, but could you describe it?
Yeah, there's so much potential to do good, and there are so many shitty services out there that need to be fixed. There is so much pain and frustration dealing with service providers. We have a lot of work to do. So what inspires me is to help this community to do that work and to live up to our potential. And what I have found is that I don't know how it's in other communities, the UX community or somewhere else, but I feel that this community is really made out of people who are deeply passionate about doing meaningful stuff. And I would hate to see those people leave because they fail to actually do that and put that into practice. So I want to help those people who want to do this, who see a passion, who want to do meaningful stuff, and really help them to take the next step.
And who has inspired you before you were inspiring others?
I don't know who has inspired me. I find inspiration in a lot of things, and it's hard to mention. It's hard to mention one person. I think I'm reading a lot of books, and almost in every book that I pick up, there's something that I'm able to get inspiration out of.
Well, I mean, all your guests at the show were in some point inspiring, I guess.
Absolutely, yeah. And again, most of the things that I'm telling you here are probably remixed and stolen from someone who was already on the show. So I'm just remixing the things that stuck with me.
Conducting, we say that conduct.
Maybe.
Yes. There's something that also you wanted to share a bit with the crowd here.
Yeah, it's something very simple. If you go to this URL, it will take you to an email course where I help you to explain service design. I created that. It's a 5-day email course, and it's based off 5 stories from my own practice when I was still at the studio, and mostly how I failed to sell service design and explain how to do it. So if you haven't signed up for that course yet, you can do it. It's free. And the link doesn't take you there. But if you're interested, I posted today on LinkedIn that I'm starting a new program called Selling Service Design with Confidence. That's a 6-week program to really bridge the gap between business and design. It's more elaborate, it's more intense. But for the people who are interested in that, yeah, hook me up on LinkedIn, or maybe somebody can post a link there. But I would suggest, if you haven't done so already, start with the email course and see if it helps you to explain service design.
Cool. Yes. So, stalk him on LinkedIn and get to it. Again, I don't have access to the chat, but Adam.
We're all good over here. We're talking about content design in the chat, and I find that really interesting. There's also been a link to lots of gamification articles and video chats. Thanks for that, Money, as well. And then also in the chat, we have something around overcrowded from Robert Vraganti about solving problems. So thanks for all the great resources and chat that is happening right now. It's good to see some responses to this.
I see a question if I'll be doing a 5-year video summary. That's a good idea. I haven't thought about that, but thanks for the suggestion. I did a summary at episode 100, so maybe I'll do that.
That is true. So Mark, it's been 5 years since you've been doing the service design show. Do you have a summary that you would like to tell us about?
Yes, and the way I would summarize the service design show and what I have learned, and I think I touched upon this in the beginning. What I find interesting, what I try to put forward is what's beneath the surface of service design. That's what I try to explore. What are the things you don't read in service design books, but that make a huge difference in practice? That's what drives me. That's I think I came to that conclusion somewhere last Christmas after 4.5 years. That's my driving goal, and that's the thing that I've always been doing with the service design show, like going below, what is it, the water level, the iceberg, and really digging into those stories.
Funny, the iceberg metaphor. There are so many different things that could be an iceberg. I don't know if
everything. It's like the 80-20.
Yes,
and the 80 is as the iceberg. It's everywhere.
I recently saw a CV that was an iceberg. That was yes.
I know that there was a question on the list that we haven't talked about at all, and there was the question about measuring the impact. I don't think it's up to you. I don't think we have time to go into that, but
we can try. Like I said at the beginning, we want to have 20 minutes for going into Wonder and meeting each other, having a conversation. But maybe top of the list, where should we start when it gets to measuring?
Well, top of the list, this would be the question that I would have the most questions around. I think you have to first, in order to actually measure service design, you have to think about or measure the impact. You have to think about what impact means for you. What is that? Because if you don't have an answer to that, like, what is it that you're going to measure? So I think in general, we have too little information to give a good answer to this. So are we measuring the number of customers, the number of sales? Are we measuring if we manage to lower costs? What is it? What is it that we're interested in? Which business metric, business objective are we trying to influence? Sure, NPS, it can be anything, but we have to know that first. So asking questions is the best answer, usually, to understanding how to measure service design. And there are a lot of challenges around it. It's the feedback loop is really long. Like between our work that we do today and when it actually comes to fruition in the real world, usually takes a very long time. And by the end, that it's somewhere in the world, like so many other things have changed as well, that it's really hard to pinpoint, like, has this been through our service design efforts, or was it because we had a Corona crisis pandemic? So there are a lot of challenges, but that's not a really good answer. I think you need to somehow show to the people around you that it's a smart investment. And the best way I have found to do that is that you need to make a plausible hypothesis that it works. And I'm going to give you a 30-second explanation of what I mean with that. So imagine that that you're, as a service designer, tasked of figuring out how to help customers make a decision about which thing on a menu they should order. I don't know, something like that. Or how to improve their restaurant experience. Then what you want to do is you want to say, okay, if we do user research and figure out what confuses our customers, then we might be able to come up with 3 solutions that can provide clarity to our customers and our employees. By doing that, we'll remove confusion for customers. Customers will be happy. They will be able to make better choices in the things they want to eat, and that will lead to shorter waiting times and more profit. And that's what I mean with a plausible hypothesis. You sort of need to take it end to end, start with what you're doing, and then always do the, if we do this, then that happens. If we do this, then that happens. And you might say, but we don't have numbers. Usually you don't need to have numbers when you do something like this. But again, there's a lot we can dive into here.
Yeah, but I think something that is interesting, the way you are framing it is, I would translate it into, if you can make a good picture or snapshot of how it is before you apply service design, before you get involved, and then you can compare that part of the picture at the end, but you need to have the hypothesis before you start, right?
Yeah, but I think there's a big caveat in what you said. So having the before and after, I think it's smart to have like a benchmark and compare it to against something. But like I said, there are so many factors at play. It's really hard to isolate service design. And it's not like you're going to A/B test and say, okay, we now did it through service design. Let's do it through lean the next time and see which one worked better. Like, you're not going to do that. It takes too much effort, and the context will be entirely different. So having a benchmark, having a baseline is smart, but it doesn't solve everything.
Yeah, no, you're right. I was just coming from the point of view of perhaps some things are measurable, and we can look at those to have the conversation at the business level, but there are some things that are not quantifiable in numbers, and there are still going to be byproducts of what you do, and you could translate those into impact somehow.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I have a question, if I can jump in from the crowd. I think Johan asked a really good question, that you mentioned something before, Mark, about how do we interact with other disciplines. So Johan asks, like, how would you think is an effective way of inviting other disciplines to learn benefit, get excited about service design?
My obvious answer would be what is preventing us right now from doing that. I don't think there is anything preventing us from doing that, rather than just not having the vocabulary of being able to speak the language, or at least to connect with them. So again, I'm going back to the example of game design. I learned some new words yesterday about game design, and that makes it a lot easier for me to connect with the other disciplines. So
What words?
oh, what words? Well, actors, rules, cyclical, cylindrical, loops, something around challenges, and that those are concepts that we might already be using, but now I have some words that the game designer uses for the same concept, and that makes it easier to have a conversation.
Yeah, and I find sometimes if you lack the vocabulary, something that was mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, don't over jargon it. We come with our own jargon to conversations, and we also confuse people. Put yourself in the shoes of the others and explain things with as little as buzzwords as possible, and you might get your message across.
So I totally agree. And one metaphor that I like to think of is, imagine that you as a service designer travel to a different village, a local town in Japan. How would you make your way? How would you connect with a local community? And we basically can use the same principles that we use in those kind of situations. We wouldn't start talking in our native language, most likely.
True.
Or if we have no other option, we might, but we would use hand signals, and we would use drawings, and we would, see yourself as a traveler.
There was one other question around accessibility and disability and inclusion, or diversity and inclusion as well. And I think that also touches on that point, how to be a traveler when you can't speak the same language, when you can't talk the same language, but also our services. Do you have some thoughts on diversity and inclusion in service design?
I'm definitely not an expert on that. I'm learning, and I have a lot of people around me who are much more eloquent around that. One thing that stuck with me recently was that somebody said we need to get away with the how might we, or how can we assignment that everybody uses in design. And the reason for that is that we is usually not we, it's just a very specific group of people, which isn't really diverse and not really representing we. So I found that an interesting perspective on adding more diversity and inclusion in the design field by sort of making sure that when we say we, that we actually are talking about we. And that will be in a future service design episode.
Okay.
Any other questions floating around?
It's been hard to keep track, but do we still have time for it, Marty? Because we could open up to just have people come to the mic, but only
I think we can have one question. Yes.
Yeah, okay. So if anyone, if we missed something like going through the chat, like you can now put your mic on and...
You have something burning you want to ask.
Nobody dares.
Lots of shy people.
Yeah, it takes a second to think of what you want to say, maybe, but maybe there's nothing else. I think we really did cover most of the topics that came.
Yes. Like I said before, we're going to have some time to network and in a bit. So maybe we can give extra time for network, and we can proceed to wrap up today. So we will be using WonderMe. I will ask Adam and Dee to share the link in the chat. If you are using Safari, Edge, Opera, Brave, or any other browser, you need to use Chrome or Firefox. This is how WonderMe looks like. You can use your pointer to click and point and move around, and you can talk to whoever is nearby, or sit in a table or in an area with other people. I think we have a maximum of 6 people or 9 people. It's pretty easy, and you'll get it really quickly. But before we go, first, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you for the invitation. I'll stick around for the WonderMe thing. I'll like to see that.
That's amazing. So you guys, if you had any questions that you felt a little bit shy asking in the bigger group, you can go straight to Mark. And from us, we also have really exciting news. We know and we have our next event, Adam.
Yeah, and this is the power of the Service Design Show. I met Natalie Kuhn, who also participated in Mark's Campfire, and I straight away signed up for it. And I'm participating in the next Campfire of in-house service designers. But one of the most fantastic people that I heard through that connection was Natalie Kuhn, and she is from New York. She's also the SDN NYC chapter organizer and host. She also works for a super giant organization called Capital One. She's the senior manager for service design there, and she has a lot of great opinions about how to do service design at scale, and also maybe even we're going to talk about the role of women in service design. And considering in Berlin on the 8th that it is International Women's Day, we hope to use that as inspiration. She is a lovely speaker and such a positive attitude. We would love to all see you there in 1 month's time on the April 7th, 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And a couple of spaces. Do you have anything that you want to share with the community? This is an open mic moment, so unmute yourself and share an event coming, anything that you would like to share with the rest.
If you're a company that's hiring, this is the ideal place to recruit.
Well, if you're looking for positions in Hamburg, in Munich, or in Vienna, get in touch with me. Fjord is looking for people in Munich, Hamburg, and Vienna. Yes.
Zalando is looking for designers if you are a product designer, and if you don't really see the difference between product and service and you want to help in the world of fashion and people find beauty that suits them, then please come join our team. Speak to me first. Please, I can refer you. And Zalando is looking for people to hire. So I can check for you, Daisy. Spark.io is also hiring in UK, US, Portugal. Come join a great team. Do we have any other community events? Oh, one more question. Can you please put your hand up or say yes in the comments if you would appreciate a organized collaborative event of portfolio review,
Yes.
portfolio review night. We have the idea of also hosting a portfolio review night, but we would love to know if you are interested in participating. We're not quite sure how it's going to be set up yet, and it will probably be a collaboration of different groups to come together. Great, that is the response I wanted to see. So thank you so much for saying yes. One more thing, if you are on a amazing designer ADP list, you can now book me as a mentor for one-on-one sessions exclusive for SDD Berlin participants. So you can book me as a mentor if you would like some feedback. We have 2 hands up. Simona, I would like to invite you next, and then we can go over to Mark. Oh, Simona, were you saying yes that you would like a portfolio?
Yeah, you said raise your hands or yes. So I did that. But thank you for the session. It's very informative. I'm like at the beginning of this. I just have a long career as a graphic designer and moved into UX design, but I'm keeping, I'm not sticking to one definition. So what I learned today was great for me. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, Adam, how that mentor thing you just mentioned, how do people find you for that?
There's a link in the description below. Like, subscribe. Good question.
To that end, like, subscribe, stock. So you can find us in sddberlin.com, in all these social medias, and we do these events once a month. Adam just mentioned the one we're doing next, but feel free to keep in touch. You can also join our mailing list on sddberlin.com to get the news, and we also have a Slack channel that you can get an invite for there. Yeah, we're all about these events and meeting people and helping the community. So thanks for being here. Thank you, and see you in WonderMe.
Oh, Courtney has one example. Before you leave, could you please post a fantastic example of services that are being created and great work for service design? Please post that, and then we'll head over to WonderMe.
She also asked, I think it might be too late because it sounds like it might take a while, Courtney. She asked if everyone could post their favorite services, but maybe we can leave this running for 2 minutes. Like service examples of services, she said, I hope the combo, we want to have enough time to have the more intimate group, small group networking. So 80 people posting their favorite services might take too long.
That would be a good question to follow up on LinkedIn, I would say.
Yes. And follow up on LinkedIn with that, but also meet everybody on WonderMe. I see you there in a couple of minutes.
We can make a post on LinkedIn, Courtney, and then we can get the thread of it.
That can be your icebreaker question. What is your favorite service in your small group? What is your favorite service? Start off with that one as an icebreaker.
Thank you, everybody.
See you in WonderMe. You got the link. I'll post the link again here before we really close it. Because it's in there. Oh, Adam, can you help me? I think I had to close down or my browser's crashing. Have you got the WonderMe link there?
There we go. This one.
Yeah, great. Okay, click that link. See you in WonderMe for a small group chat.
Go now. Join us. We are awesome.
Bye.